These types of flower hair accessories are very popular in the shops at the moment. This project is going to show you how to put an LED into the centre. So here's the circuit on the back of the hair accessory. Because this flower is very small, we can't use an ordinary cell holder on the back because it's going to be too large. So we're going to use the miniature cell holder that's just here. Just adds a little bit of fun to the accessory. Just notice on the accessory there is no on and off switch on this one, so in order to switch the LED off you would have to remove the battery completely from the accessory. This is quite a basic project, so it's fairly easy to do, so it's quite good for a beginner to have a go at. The only real sort of difficulty is the fact you are working with quite a small area, so it can be quite fiddly if you're not used to handling a needle, but beginners should be able to cope with the project quite easily. The circuit's hidden on the back of the hair accessory, but if you don't want this circuit to be visible or to catch against things, you can just attach a piece of fabric over the back here. You could even attach a popper on either side so that it can be removed to allow access to the battery, so you can switch it on and off. So we're going to need a hair accessory, which I've got here. We're also going to need the miniature cell holder that I mentioned, along with the cell to go inside it. We're going to need a standard LED. I've just got a white one here, but you could use other colours if you wanted to, and some conductive thread, and finally just some ordinary sewing thread that will just sort of match the colour of the hair accessory that you've got. The first step is to create a hole in the centre of the flower, so going all the way through to the back. To do this I've used a bradawl, so it's just got a sharp point on the end and just pushes all the way through. And it's quite difficult to do if you've got quite lots of thick layers of plastic. Often these little flowers, they look quite delicate, but they've actually got little bits of plastic and metal in these sort of sections just under here. So you might just want to sort of check on the one that you buy that it does look like you can actually push either a drill or a bradawl through the layers of fabric to make a hole. Once you've drilled your hole through the centre or used the bradawl, I'm just going to pop the legs of the LED through the centre so that they're coming out on the reverse side. We're then going to just take some long nose pliers and just twist. I'm going to start off with this negative leg and just twist that into a loop. So here you can see I've twisted my negative leg and just pushed it to one side, and I've done a few over sewing stitches just to hold the negative leg onto the layer of my fabric. When you do this, you can sometimes find that the layers of glue underneath can make your needle a little bit sticky, so you just might need to sort of be aware of keeping the needle clean. Just keep wiping it off if it gets any glue on it. Just make sure your stitches are nice and tight as you do your over sewing stitches to hold the metal leg down onto the flower fabric. And once you've done 7 or 8 stitches over the leg, you're just going to take your stitches across the flower to the position where you want your miniature cell holder to go, and we're going to just have it sort of sitting over here. So here's my miniature cell holder in position, and I'm just using the same piece of thread. I'm just going to over sew through that hole on the end to attach the negative side of the cell holder onto the fabric. Just notice I've ignored this one here, so this little hole just here at the moment. That's not part of our circuit. We're going to stitch that down later just to give us a little bit of stability, but it's the holes that are covered with the metal circle just here that we're focusing on for making the circuit. So here you can see I've now completed this side of the circuit, the negative side, and cut my thread off, leaving no loose tails of thread. I'm now going to do my positive side, so just flip that round a little bit, just so that I can get at the leg on the positive side of the LED. Just going to twist the leg round to make it into a little loop, and just to flatten that down to the opposite side. So it's just quite important that this gap here, that the two legs aren't touching each other. With this being quite small, this area on the flower, it's quite easy if those legs are sort of to touch, so just make sure that they're not touching. So I'm just now going to stitch my positive side of my leg down in the same way as before. Here you can see that I've done my over sewing stitches on both the cell holder and the LED, just got a little tiny running stitch going from one to the other. I'm now left with the two loose holes which aren't part of the circuit, they're just there for stability. So I've just got some ordinary sewing thread which I can just do some ordinary over sewing stitches just to hold that in place so that it doesn't move about. So now my circuit's complete and I can just take my cell and slide it into the cell holder with the positive on the top of the cell matching the positive on the top of the cell holder. Just push it into place. And there's my lit up LED. Obviously, as we said before, to switch that off we'd have to take the cell out of the holder. Also mentioned before that we could cover this area here if we didn't want this circuit to be exposed.